In this video, we are going to plot a non-basic parabola. So the non-basic parabola that we have selected for this video is y equals 5x squared minus 20x plus 12. Let's zoom in somewhat on the vertex. Okay, and it looks like our vertex has the coordinates 2, -8. Okay, now what makes this a non-basic parabola is the fact that the leading coefficient, right? In other words, the number that's in front of the x squared is not 1 or -1. So if that number is something other than 1 or -1, then that means that it is a non-basic parabola. So in this case, our number is 5. And that number is larger than 1. So we're going to compare that to the basic parabola, a basic parabola of the same vertex at some point. So, but right now we know that we have a vertex of 2, -8. So let's plot that vertex 2, -8. Okay, and if we label that point, we can see that that is indeed our vertex. So just like we did in the last videos, the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to copy the vertex. So we've selected it, right? I've done that by holding down my left mouse button and then sliding it over and capturing the entire vertex. And that selects it. And then I do Control C or Command C to copy it. Now we're going to need 5 of these points to the right of the vertex and 5 to the left. So that means that I'm going to paste 10 copies of this vertex. So I'm doing Control V or Command V. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So we have 10 copies of that vertex. They're all stacked on top of one another. Okay, and then we're going to do the same thing that we did last time, which is we are going to, for the upward opening parabolas, we're going to add 1 to our x coordinate of our vertex, and we're going to also subtract 1. So that means that we're making points to the left and right of the vertex. You can see that here on our graph. Then we're going to add 2 and then subtract 2. Adds 2 more points. Then we're going to add 3 and subtract 3. Then we're going to add 4. That's not what I meant to do. Add 4 and subtract 4. And then we will add 5 and subtract 5. Okay, so that gives us 5 points to the left of the vertex and also 5 points to the right of the vertex. And you can see them as a series of dots that are arranged to the left and right of the vertex on our graph. So then we're going to scroll up, and beginning with the first point, we're going to again square our number and add the result to the y coordinate. Okay, this is for upward opening parabolas. Now for a downward opening parabola, we would have subtracted from the y coordinate. But in this case, it's an upward opening parabola. And so we're going to add to the y coordinate. So 1 squared is 1. So we'll add 1. But oh no, it doesn't go all the way up to the parabola. And that's because we have a leading coefficient that is not 1. So how we're going to deal with this is that the number that we add to the y coordinate, we're going to multiply it by the leading coefficient. So the way we do that on a standard laptop or desktop computer is I'm going to hold down the Shift key and hit the number 8 key, which on Desmos gives us a multiplication button, and then I'm going to multiply that by the leading coefficient, which was 5, and booyah grandma, how about that? The point is now on the vertex. So we're going to do the same thing for the next point. We're going to add 1, but then because we have to multiply by the leading coefficient, I hold down the Shift key and hit the number 8 key. That gives us multiplication, and then multiply by 5. And so now that's on the parabola. Now I think the next points are probably going to go off the screen. So I'm going to zoom out just a bit here. So we'll zoom out, and then we're going to continue with that same pattern. We're going to have to zoom out at least one more time as we do this. So now the next point, that we added 2 to the x-coordinate. So that means that we're going to add 4, which is 2 squared, to the y-coordinate. Again, notice that that point does not rise to the level of the parabola. So we're going to have to multiply by Shift 8. We're going to have to multiply by the leading coefficient. Okay, and then that's going to put that on our parabola, which, there it is. You see that we're going to need to zoom out in just a moment. Okay, so again, we add 4. We added 2 to the x-coordinates. That means we add 4 to the y-coordinate. Hold down Shift, hit 8, and then multiply by 5. And that puts our point on the parabola. Okay. For our next point, we're going to add 9. Okay, but again, it's not on our parabola. I'm going to have to zoom out again. So let's zoom out and scroll down just a bit. Okay, and we see that purple point there is not quite on the parabola. It's going to have to go up all the way up to about 35 to be on the parabola. So we're going to go in here and multiply. So we did Shift 8 and then multiply by 5. And notice that it's up past 35. Okay, so that point is on our parabola. Okay, and then we're going to do it again. So plus 9, and then Shift 8, multiplied by 5, puts that point on our parabola. Okay, I'm going to have to zoom out again. Like I said, at least one more time. Turns out more than that. Okay, and then, okay, when we add 4 to the x-coordinate, that means we're going to add 16 to the y-coordinate, but we're not adding 16 because we're going to have to multiply 16 by 5 to be able to put that onto the parabola. So again, for the next one, we add 16. Notice that it doesn't go all the way up there. And so we're going to have to hold Shift 8 to get multiplication and then multiply by 5. So now we are on the parabola. Our last one is that we're going to have to add 25. And let me add that to both of these last ones. Okay, and then we're going to have to do Shift 8 times 5, and I'm going to have to zoom out one more time in order to be able to see that. So there's that point right there, which is 7, 117. Okay, and then we're going to do the same thing for the next point. We'll hold down Shift 8 and multiply by 5. And so now all of our points are on the parabola. So again, we used the same counting pattern that we used for the basic parabola. When we added 1 and subtracted 1 from the x-coordinate, added 2, subtracted 2 from the x-coordinate, added 3, subtracted 3 from the x-coordinate, and so forth. And then we add the squares of those numbers to the y value, or the y-coordinate. So we added 1, then we added 4, then we added 9, then we added 16, then we added 25 to the y-coordinates, but that didn't do it. That would have worked sufficiently for a basic parabola, but this is not a basic parabola. This is a non-basic parabola. So what we need to do beyond that point then is we need to multiply each of those values that we added to the y-coordinate. We need to multiply them by the leading coefficient. And again, the leading coefficient in our parabola was 5. So we multiplied each of those y-coordinate, the numbers that we added to the y-coordinate, we multiplied them by 5. And you can see that I'm highlighting that right now by selecting those numbers. So we multiplied each of those y values, each of those numbers that we added to the y-coordinate rather, we multiplied each of those by 5, and that put our numbers, or that put our points rather, on the parabola. So that is how you plot the non-basic parabola where our number is greater than 5. Let's do another one in just a moment where our leading coordinate, or leading coefficient rather, is between 0 and 1.